today we are starting on the ecology unit wrap-up, and you have 3 different entries that you are going to do. I'll explain them all individually. On this first one, it says that you are going to create biome cards. You were handed these out last week, and you are going to use 2 different websites, one for the aquatic and one for the terrestrial biomes. For the terrestrial biomes, you will navigate to blueplanetbiomes.org. So for example, when you pull out the card that says tundra, you will navigate down to where it says tundra and click on it. The top of your card asks for the abiotic factors, and the abiotic factors are anything that is non-living. So in class, we will mention that you probably should talk about the climate, because that is one thing that makes the tundra totally different than another biome. So when you go to the climate, you just pick a couple of things, not a whole bunch, to mention. So here it mentions that they have sunshine for 24 hours. Since sun is an abiotic factor, you could put that. Since summer involves something that is non-living, you could put that it lasts for 6 to 10 weeks. You could put something about the temperature. Then the next one mentions that you need to have a geographical distribution. For that one, you are looking for an actual place. So I need you to tell me where is an example, or what is an example of a tundra that exists on the planet. So sometimes on this website, it will mention a specific location. Sometimes it will just mention a region. Here it mentions that Antarctica is an example. And in the northern hemisphere, it also says that there are some. You can also look here at this map, and you can give an example from there. So that's the geographic distribution. And then the other 2 are super simple, because they are just asking for the plants and the animals. And here you would click on the plants and just write 2 examples. You don't have to write anything about the examples, just the examples. That way you could link back to them if you needed to, if I were to ask you a question on them. So for here, just because they're on the top, I would write down Arctic moss and Arctic willow. And then for the animals, I would just pick 2 examples, and I would just blatantly write them down. Arctic fox is a really great one, because obviously he only is going to live in the tundra. And then you would pick 1 other example. So that gets you the terrestrial biomes, which means on land. And then the aquatic biome, you have to read a little bit more into those. The information is still there, but you have to use your context clues. So for example, when you get the card that says coral reef, here is your information on the coral reef. Your abiotic factors, you're looking for something that is not living. And here in the first sentence, it mentions that they are warm, shallow waters. So for me, that's what I would choose to write about coral reef, because water is not living. The second thing that you have to do is geographic distribution. So you're looking for an example of an area that would be a coral reef. Here it mentions the Great Barrier Reef of Australia. So that's exactly what I would write for geographic distribution. So now for plants, you are looking for some kind of vegetation. And if you read through here, it mentions that algae is photosynthetic. So it is a producer. So you could put algae for the plants. And then for animals, it mentions coral, it mentions fish, it mentions urchins, octopus, and sea stars. So I would just choose a couple of those to write down. So that gets you through this first thing that you have to do with the biome cards. Second entry within this ecology wrap-up is here with succession. It says for you to create a chart or a sticky note or some kind of entry to express the difference in primary and secondary succession. So here is the 1-pager for succession, and all you're going to focus on is the chart that tells the difference in primary and secondary succession. So you scroll down to it. If you are a person that really likes colors and that's how you learn, then you may want to take 2 sticky notes, label one primary and one secondary, and then write this information underneath them. If you are a more analytical person, that a chart is going to be how you learn better, then you could put this information into a chart. If you are a very artistic person, then maybe you want to draw a picture of a volcano erupting, and that is your representation of primary. And then secondary, it may be lightning. And so you may draw a picture of lightning being your secondary succession example. So that is your second entry. It literally is just you making some kind of graphic representation in your composition notebook to denote the differences in primary and secondary. And it is just this portion of the one pager, nothing else. The third portion of what you have to do for the ecology unit wrap up is here where it says the driving question analysis, where you create an entry with the 8 driving questions. We did this as a group in class. However, if you were absent, what you need to do is go down to this, open up this file. This will give you viewing rights only. And you're just coming up with how you would answer each one of these questions. You do not have to copy the question in your notebook unless you just really need to. If you wanted to take and make a copy of this to have it in your Google Drive so you could look at it later, that would be a really good idea. So all you're doing is looking for how you would answer this question, and you're adding it into your notebook. So create an entry entitled Ecology Driving Questions. Then you look down at number 1. Is a zombie considered biotic or abiotic, and how do you know? That looks to me like it needs to be 2 sentences, so I come up with how I would answer that. I would word this as a zombie is biotic because it used to be a living organism. So I was even able to answer this 2-parter in 1 sentence.